Boom. Hey guys, how's it going? Bit of a different stream for you today, for reasons which I will get into once I've positioned myself. There I am. So I had a really interesting weekend. Move this a little closer. Had a really interesting weekend. I kind of have been thinking about the time restrictions we put on music creativity and the good and bad of essentially having infinite time. Like, not being tied to a record label means you can take your sweet time with music. You don't necessarily have a release schedule, so you can kind of do what you want, and there's positives and there's negatives to that. And I started thinking this, I guess, last year when I released my album Irradiated Hamster Alert, and especially because that took 8 years to finish. Um, on and off. Of course, it took 8 years to get to a point where I thought, no, I can actually release this. There's enough material there. It sounds good enough. I like the compositions. I look really dark, which is insane because I've got all the lights on. There's probably some automatic setting in the camera. I'll get to why the lights are on in a second as well. Yeah, so I was thinking about thinking about deadlines and composition timelines and that kind of stuff. And I wondered, wouldn't it be really interesting to see what you can do if you put a really small restrictive time frame on something? So the opposite of taking 8 years to release a 10-track album, I guess the opposite is like taking a weekend to release a 5-track EP. Well, I guess the opposite is taking a day to release 100 tracks or something dumb like that. But I figured, let's keep it attainable. So can I and a collaborator make, like, write, record, edit, mix a 5-track EP within a weekend? The short version is, yeah, we can. I'm not 100% on some of the tracks. There's a lot that I would like to tweak further or re-record, but obviously within the time frame, you can't do that. You've got to kind of stick with what you have. So that was this weekend. We worked Friday afternoon. Me and Sai, who I've mentioned before on stream, I write with him a lot. Well, I don't write with him a lot. He's the person I write with the most, other than just by myself. So we started Friday afternoon, and we basically worked until Sunday evening, yesterday evening. And yesterday evening, we bounced out the tracks we had. We did a really, really basic level master, and then we uploaded them to CD Baby. And I think they're available for purchase on CD Baby now, and they'll be going out to Spotify and all the other places shortly after. So it's done. The project's over. What I wanted to do on this stream is, because my time is really limited, especially this week. This week's bonkers in terms of various commitments. So what I wanted to do was be smart with my time and combine this live stream with some taping I have to do for a documentary that we're making about the whole process of the Weekend E.P. Oh, I told you that it's available, but I didn't tell you what it's called. It's called One Weekend, and it's by the Musical Endeavour, which is a name that we sort of just came up with. Kind of an in-joke, I guess, which would take too long to explain. Yeah, One Weekend by the Musical Endeavour should be available places soon. So, me taping means a few things. It means that although I'm streaming to this camera here, I will actually be addressing a camera that's... Can't see that, can you? It's like here. It also means that ideally my microphone would be slightly further away from my face. So I'm going to kind of put it here. Because it's a shotgun, I think that's not really going to affect too much. It's directional, so it'll still get mostly me. But it might mean that, like, my voice gets a little roomy because I have to turn this way to address this camera. So not much I can actually do about that. But you can still hear my voice. It's all good. What else does it mean? Oh, it means that I have, there it is. I have this button, so I can basically leave at my leisure, which I quite like. Because we're going to be using the screen capture as well, I think, hopefully, in the documentary. So my face is basically going to disappear for some sections while I talk about things. So you won't even know that I'm talking to this camera over here rather than this one, other than my voice might sound like this rather than like this. That was quite rambly. There's going to be sections where I basically just play the track through. We'll hopefully do that 5 times because it's a 5-track EP. And that will just be me turning the camera off, me turning my microphone off, and basically just letting the music play. So we have capture of each song. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the techniques we use, some of the effects, some of the ways we wrote the different tracks. Yeah. Is that everything? I really feel like that's everything. I feel like I've been talking for ages. So what I'm going to do, I can get my breath back from that 6-minute tirade of words. I'm going to turn my mic off, turn my camera off, and then just let track number 1 play. So you'll just hear track 1 from start to finish. And to do that, do I need this camera on? No, I'll turn that camera on in a sec. I'm just trying to be logical, trying to use my brain. Doesn't always work. Yeah, I'll hit play. See you in 4 minutes, apparently. It's a good one. Track number 1. Can't remember what we called it. Yeah, here we go. Actually, I'll do a level check first. Yeah, without giving away the ending. Ooh, that's a bit noisy. Let's try that. Here we go. Sorry, I just realised the reason it sounds dumb is because one of my buttons is not up the whole way. And let me just try this. Right, that's much better. Sorry, guys. Awkward, I know. Let's try it again. So that very abrupt ending is the ending to track number 1. Let me just turn on this camera to my side. That camera is on. And now I'm going to clap my hand so that I can sync footage later. So sorry if your ears hurt. That was easy. So let's talk about some of the specific things that happened in here. The way our process for recording kind of worked was that I would write a piece of music and Sai would independently write his own piece of music. There's a better way to phrase that, isn't there? The way our process worked is that me and Sai would independently write pieces of music, and then we would send each other the audio files, and we would kind of remix the other person's work. And I liked that as a concept because it meant I feel like we could do things a lot faster, because me and Sai, we write different kinds of music, but we write good music. So rather than us both trying to write something together and kind of trying to compromise on our individual ideas, we could just say, this is my idea that I want to stick with, this is the thing that I like, but now it's basically a complete package, but now I'm relinquishing control to you, the other person. So the original version of this, which is in this folder here, is over here. And the way this was made, you can see there's lots of stuff that's been cut up and repositioned. The way this was made was with my collection of synthesizers, so like the Novation circuits, TB3 by Roland, MX1 by Roland. Basically just created a piece of music with those, recorded each part independently, and then brought them into Cubase and then kind of arranged them into a structure. So it was kind of like remixing my own idea to begin with, and you can see I added a MIDI kit and then a pad on top. So the original version sounded like this. I guess this section is kind of like the first section in Sai's version. Oh yeah, the tempo is changed, so there might be a bit of jank. Yeah, very similar. And I didn't like the melody I came up with, but Sai did, which actually happens quite a lot. I'll write something that I think is trash, and Sai actually is like, no, that's really good, and then we'll use it, which is fine. So some of the interesting stuff in here, I guess the track label dumb stuff. This is a really fun little synthesizer box that will basically just bleep in at a speed that you set on the box and a pitch that you set on the box. It's a really, really simple synthesizer, and it looks like a guitarist stomp box, so you can do sounds like this. And then I put a flanger on it, and I put a modded delay on it, and we use those as risers, which are essentially transitional effects. So we go from one section to another section, and this kind of indicates that change. And what I like about that is that it's not in time. It's got a tempo synced delay on it, and I think the flanger's tempo synced as well. It is. So those two things are in time, but the actual original thing doesn't have a time to it at all. It doesn't have a tempo. Let's hear another example. And again, in the context of the piece. So it's a fun kind of atonal noise, I guess. And as you can see, I didn't really have a discernible bridge. I think I just had this paddy section. And that sequence, I don't think Sai even used that sequence in the end, which is fine. Some things just go in the bin. And you can see that the chord section here is cut up quite a lot. The original take, oh, here it is. The original take for that chord sequence is here, and you can see it's, how long is that? 2 minutes of just this one chord sequence on a loop. And I was kind of playing with the effects inside the Novation circuit as I was doing it, and a lot of the sounds are not great. I think there's one quite early on. Let's have a listen. Yeah, you can kind of hear that that pitch change. That's great for stuff like vaporwave, which isn't really what we were going for, or initially what I was going for with this track, and it was kind of quite extreme of an effect. But that's what's happened. That's what happens when you kind of have to rely a little bit on just experimentation. So that's why these are all cut up, to basically get the good sounding versions of those chords. And again, you can see this is the original take of the what ended up being the risers, those bleepy effects, and you can see that's about 1 minute and 40 seconds of just playing with the noises. And just trying different things out, seeing what sounds I can get out of them. This one you can see has got quite a nice shape to it, so what we ended up doing, I think that's the one we used, we flipped it, we reversed it so it's a crescendo rather than a diminuendo there, and I think we used that, we faded it in so it's more of a subtle, more of a gradual fade in. So that's track 1. Tell you what, let's have a quick look at those risers in context. So there's some, where are they? Oh yeah, risers and bleepers. So again, as a transitional effect, this is that same one, I think. With a bit of a tail on it as well. So this is how it sounds in the context of the piece. See how it kind of just indicates that something is about to happen. They use that quite a lot in electronic music, usually with a lot of delay, a lot of reverb, and a lot of filtering to kind of sweep into the next section. We also have this guitar doing a kind of funky sound. That was a very late addition. That was added, I think that was the last thing we recorded entirely. It just felt like it needed something, well, I thought it needed something that was this, so that's why it's in there. This whole section here, with the green bit, was entirely Psy. I think the drum loop at the top here is original. That's, I think, my original drums, and the bass is the original bass, but kind of filtered downwards, so it feels very small and compact. But then these 1, 2, 3 layers of kind of paddy effects in the lead, these are all Psy. Because I think the idea with that one was when I first gave him my original version, he said it felt like a loading screen for a game, which it did. So especially with this patch, that feels very gamey. So I think that's why he added that. So it's kind of like we have the loading screen, and then you have the boss battle, and then you go back to the original loading screen. So when I got it back from Psy, I think the only changes I made, other than mixing and adding the guitar part, I think I repeated a few sections. So you can see this orange section here and here. I think that only happened once. So in Psy's version, we jumped from this section into this green section. I wanted a little bit more repetition just to give it a little more sense of structure. So I essentially copied this bit from here and pasted it here, and I think I adjusted. You can see the guitar part slightly different. I think the melodies slightly different there. And again, I think this green section is more or less repeated here, or it's referenced here. So I just gave it a little more structure compared to Psy's version. The way that Psy writes music is very flowing, so you don't tend to get a lot of repeats. So that is why I chose to do repeats. So then it's a combination of our two works. So I made something, I remixed it myself, I then let Psy remix that, and then I remixed that. So it's ultimately it comes out a combination of our works, especially as he added a lot of his own stuff in there as well, which is obviously part of the whole process. That's very welcome. So that was track 1. Is that everything I want to say about track 1? Oh yeah, the only other thing is that for some reason we got quite a lot of noise out of my synth rig. I guess because there's a lot of analog stuff in there. It's prone to noise, it just is. So I had to end up using some filters to get rid of some of the background noise, and that obviously has an impact on the sound. But again, with the time restraint, that's something you just kind of have to embrace. So I guess you could look at the silver lining and say, well, at least we got something unique sounding because of the problems we faced. Not ideal, but again, that kind of, in my mind, makes it feel like it was part of this weekend's process, which it was. So let's try and open up. Yeah, we'll save that. Hey, behold my background. Look at all of my different project folders. Open recent. Track 2. Gonna put my face back on the screen for a bit. Say hello. How's it going? Let's hope this works. Why would it not work? Oh, yeah, it's just missing that file. That's fine. So this track was originally a keyboard part played by Psy. A really nice kind of 80s feeling vibraphone or electric piano loop. I say loop, I think he played for a few minutes and then we basically took it and cut it up, and then it was my job to just add stuff to it. I think he played guitar as well, and we sampled that quite heavily. So I'm going to do what I did for the first track. Firstly, because we're screen capping, I'm going to make these a bit bigger so we can actually see them on screen. Here we go. So let's... I'll maybe zoom in a bit as well. I'm not sure if we're going to use the screen capture, but hey, now we have the option. My face goes away, that gets positioned there, and the microphone goes down, and then I hit play. 2 there. Sorry, I realised I had the metronome on halfway. Soz. So the whole track basically relies around this really nice keyboard pattern that Sai played. That was kind of just like a, I don't think it was a tempo, but that was kind of one of the more loose parts of what he was playing. The actual take for that again was not the shortest thing in the world. I think it's, what are we, 5.5. It was like 2.5 minutes of just kind of vamping over a couple ideas. So I think he played something, and then I asked him to play that same thing. There was some direction I gave him. I can't remember if it was more deliberate, less loose, or I got him to move the chords around or up octaves or something. I can't remember. We've got footage of that somewhere. It's all good. And then I just got him to hold chords for a little bit in case we wanted to use them, which I don't know if we did in the end. So the first thing I did was find a section that I wanted to repeat, which was this. And then obviously you can hear there's a glitch at the end there with the tape down. And you can see there's quite a lot of automation. I think I bring in some ambient effects with mod delay, and there's more glitch here and there as well. This orange section compared to the yellow one, all I really did was cut up the keyboard pattern and kind of rearrange it. I deliberately went for something that didn't quite sound right. So the main pattern is this. Which is not obviously the order that those chords were played in. It isn't the order that they necessarily feel the most comfortable. I kind of wanted to put people on edge with that a little bit. And then we came up with this really cool sort of a kind of hip-hop bass line. Which I played on keyboard. Can't remember how it goes. Oh, G sharp. For the sake of the tape, I'm going to record that again without my mic on. I can't remember the other version of that, the response to it. That was it, up to C sharp. So that I was playing along with the keyboard part on the MIDI synth, and then eventually came up with that. I wanted to, there's something about vibraphone or this electric piano patch that makes me think of rain. And because the whole weekend it was raining quite hard at times, I thought it'd be really nice to sample some of the outside noise and layer that in. So this is just a take of the weather outside. And that's cool because you've got the rain, you've got the wind, you've got birds, and it's in stereo, so it feels really deep and nice. So that combined with the keys is just really nice. Yeah, it really works. And we bring that back in for this little breakdown here. Sai also wanted to record some guitar for it, so we recorded a few passes of him kind of just jamming along on guitar, and that's what you hear at this point. And what I wanted to do was have this kind of back and forth between these keyboard hits, which I think they become gradually quite affected. They've got this really fun, throaty texture that gradually comes in. I wanted to do a back and forth between a processed guitar line and that. So what we did was we took a section of the guitar that we really liked, and I put it through a glitch program set to randomised. So every beat, it's gonna mess with the guitar in some way, but we don't actually get to know what. It's just going to do it randomly, so that can vary quite drastically. Is this? So that's a version of the glitch effects. And you can hear in that there's some really unpleasant sounds, and unpleasant not in a fun way, just in an unpleasant way. So what we then did was we took the process, we bounced it, we processed the guitar with the random glitch effect, and we re-imported it, and then we cut it up into beats, and then took the bits that we like, the bits that sounded the most musical and the most fun, and then we kind of manually rearranged them, and that's how we have what we have now. And I think, especially with this slightly more sparse bass line and the kind of nearly hip-hop kit and the keyboard, I think that's just a really cool blend. Yeah, I'm really fond of that. What else have we got? Oh, we've got another riser, so I can show you. Using something called Pad Shop. Pad Shop's a really fun instrument that takes an audio sample and it plays it in a granular way, which basically means it separates the smallest fractions of the audio in terms of time. It takes these little tiny snippets and kind of throws them around and plays them back in a new order, which I really like. And if we had a little more time, it would have been nice to put some more sounds inside of that and play it. We could have even taken the rain noise from outside and played that like a keyboard. That's one of the things with having time to work on stuff, is that you can get even more creative, but next time. So this riser is that patch, and I think we've just automated the volume. Yeah, that's it. So the volume just gradually increases to signal a transition, so it sounds like this by itself. And in context, it sounds like this. Yeah, it's really nice. Just kind of sits in there. What else have we got? Oh yeah, so the keyboard section, I took another tiny piece of size keyboard, and basically as a way to transition back into the nice sounding keyboard from the throaty rung modulator effect, we're basically just through this section repeating the same chord or the same note very quickly and gradually reducing those effects. So you can see the throaty ring modulator here is gradually being removed. Yeah, we've got some other stuff. What's this? I can't really see what that is. Nope, that's not going to let me read it. Oh well. Oh, is that? Hang on. So we've got a delay effect gradually coming in as well, and then it pans quite quickly from left to right, so it goes back and forth between your two ears. So by itself it sounds like this. So that's a really fun transition within the context of the whole song. It sounds like this. cool. I like it a lot. I think that's everything I want to talk about for this track. Let me just see how we're doing for time. 45 minutes. Okay, right, yeah, we're good. Let's move on to the next track. That camera can go off. This camera can come on for a bit. Hello. I'm just gonna sit here whilst I open the next thing, and you can be all like, oh, hey, there's Liam's face. I've not seen that in a few minutes. Size Reason project. So size DAW of choice is Reason. I have never used Reason. I think I tried to, and it just scared me. It just looks scary when I'm used to Cubase. I mean, I've used Cubase for like 10 years or something like that, and I understand how it works. I basically like it. I've used Ableton a bit, and I've used Pro Tools, and I still just feel like I can do more with Cubase, but that's just me. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn this guy off, and I'm just going to play this through with my mic off. So enjoy track 3 called, I think it was called The Ruiner. You may be able to tell why. Here we go. Oh boy. um, yeah, that's a weird one, but I'm really fond of it. So, Sai wrote a really nice piano part for this third track. Um, it was kind of weird. It had a sort of Life on Mars kind of vibe. Um, the chords moved in a weird way. It was great, but I didn't know what to do with it because it was his, and then he sent me the stems, the audio files, and I was like, "What am I going to do with this?" It feels like a complete piece of music, but a complete piece of basically solo piano. I think he gave me this pad as well, and a drum kit. I was like, I don't know what to do, or it's percussion really, isn't it? I didn't know what to do with it because it felt like it was quite delicate and quite nice. So I thought I'd ruin it by putting a load of really grainy digital effects. In fact, there's so many effects going on. I think that the computer bugged out just now. This is all on that piano part. It sort of glitched out here. Yeah, that's not so bad. You can kind of hear there's lots of grain. And it's just horrible. But like there's a kind of beauty to it because the underlying thing is really gorgeous. But then you just completely mess it up. And that was kind of what I wanted to do. I felt like it was so nice, like no matter what effects I put on it, you could still basically hear how nice the piano line was. So that's what I really wanted to push there. And this kind of hook section was basically just a really, really simple bass line. I think that's just octaves. Along with a solid drum kit combined with the original percussion. Which kind of adds to the glitchy feel. The pad is cut up. So it's much more sparse, and as we heard, I cut up the original piano part and distorted it quite a lot. This original MIDI here for the intro it was actually played by Sai. I think he played it and then he quantized it quite hard, so you play something but then you make it perfectly rigidly in time. I undid that process. I think it was static chords, so I sort of changed them a little bit. So rather than playing a chord like that, you kind of separate the notes, like kind of strumming on a guitar. You don't play all the notes at once, they come in gradually. So I did that to it. I rearranged the rhythm slightly. I altered the tempo so it was a little freer at the start, and I think I added this kind of chromatic thing. And then I put the sustain pedal in there as well. So that was interesting that Sai decided he played it, then he made it rigid and perfect, and then I made it imperfect and human sounding. That's part of the fun of it. And then I think this pad part was played as well, but he sent me the MIDI, so like the data that controls the audio you hear. I just wanted an extra layer, so I think that's basically the same chords that he's playing in the piano at this point. Just copied in the pad just to kind of fill it out. And then at the end, as you heard, I just gradually added more and more really hideous effects until the end result is this. Yeah, pretty disgusting, but I kind of like it. I was a little annoyed that it kind of came in quite suddenly here. but I guess that really kind of signals the fact that this is about to end. And I think that's quite effective. There is some kind of weird beauty to how that ends. Like, it's such a stark contrast to like the chords at the beginning. Just by the end, it's this complete mess. Ugh, I kind of like it. I think that's all I want to talk about there. So let's load up the next one. I'm going to put my face back on. Hello. And I'm also going to, that camera goes off. And then we load up track 4. We're nearly there, guys. 3, 4. So this was originally a piano part that I played, which I'm sure we'll get to. Hey, my screen just turned off. Did it turn off for you guys? I don't know if I get to know. No, apparently not. Okay, whatever. That was weird. So we'll do the usual thing. I will turn my camera off, and oh, it might be nice to have those on screen actually. And I will. What else do I need to do? I've confused myself. Oh, microphone down. That's it. So I'll zoom in. My mic goes off, and we hit play. Cool. So yeah, that one started out as a really simple keyboard pattern that I was playing. It's something like, yeah, something like a E minor, but then you drop down to E minor 7. Is this 2? Or is that... Oh, it's a second inversion B minor. You're basically just E minor, B minor, but it's done in a fun voicing. So that's played on electric keyboard with a string patch under it as well. So you get the attack, the impact of the keyboard sound, and then kind of like the mellow strings underneath sustaining, which is quite nice. So that is basically cut up, and then again there's another tape pull effect, which happens on reflection way more often than it should, but hey, whatever. The bass line for this was originally played on a fretless bass. I like playing fretless bass, I like having the glissando, but it just, I couldn't get it sounding right. There were issues with the pitch of it in places, which is always going to be the case with fretless instruments, especially if I've not played them for a while. So, and it just, we couldn't quite get the sound right, so we didn't want to scrap it entirely. The MIDI here is just what I was playing on bass. Which is quite simple. I think there's a more complex pattern later on. I guess you could call that a chorus. So we just worked out the MIDI for what I was playing on the bass, but we ended up keeping the audio. We thought it would be fun to have these kind of bass fills. You can hear there's a little bit of a snap there as well because it's audio. I quite like that. So that happens at the end of these blue sections, I guess we're calling them verse. And then in this bridge, what we did was we distorted it a lot, and we added reverb. I think it was drive, and then reverb. Oh no, hang on, let's have a look. So we got it's EQ'd. There's a tiny bit of distortion, then a compressor, then distortion, reverb, and then a tremolo. So you get this funny kind of, sort of similar to like the wob wob dubstep effect, but much less abrasive and kind of more mellow and more fun because it's based on not to come across as superior or anything, but it's based on a real instrument. So you get this kind of nice sound. This really kind of chaotic fuzz, and it just sits in there really nicely. And that works really well because the lead doing this part, you bring in an expressive effect, so it kind of sits very subtly in the mix, and then it unfolds and it kind of comes to the fore at the same point that the bass disappears. So the combination works really well. It's a really simple melody as well, but I'm quite fond of it. And interestingly, there was a part where we were trying to think about where's it gone? I'm not going to be able to find it, am I? Oh yeah, we were trying to think of a response to the bass line. So I think it started out as this. But it was just that repeated 4 times for each section. We wanted a response to it, so the alternate version was this. And that, basically I played it, so rather than going Da, 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 da. We went da, 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 da. We went upwards rather than down at the end. And then Si said, do a descending pattern like this. And he basically told me what notes to play. And then when we listened to it back, we realised that was the lead. Except for like the last couple notes there. But of course he hadn't heard that yet. He'd only heard the bass line as I was working on it. So it was really interesting that we kind of independently came to the same melody, or two very similar melodies that work really well together. Yeah, just hear that in context. So that's really interesting. Yeah. So that's track 4. I think that's everything I want to talk about. Oh, we've got a bit of filtering on the drums, so the normal pattern is this. And in the intro we just had it quite... The volume was lower, and then we used a filter. Kind of a moving filter as well. Just to give it a bit more interest in the intro. Wicked, so that is track 4. I need to put my face back on screen. Hello. Yes, we want to save. I can turn this camera off. God, I'm getting really good at this process now that we're nearly done. Recent projects. Number 5. Wicked. This is an interesting track. It actually is. I'm not just saying that to be facetious or misleading. So let's adjust this. So I guess these guitars come down a little bit. I'm going to put those for the moment up here and delete that track because we don't need it. I'm going to expand that group. Expand these. I'm just making it so the screen's a little more fun to look at. Yeah, cool. So again, face off, mic off, and then we hit play. Enjoy track 5, last track.
track 5.
So, as you can tell, that was an awful lot of slide guitar. I am not a slide player. I don't pretend to be. I have a guitar in open G tuning, and I have a slide, but I think what you heard there is the entirety of what I can do with a slide guitar. So, I kind of wanted that. I kind of wanted to push myself to do something I wouldn't normally do, slide guitar. And I think there's a little bit of sloppiness that comes through, which I don't mind. The Weekend project felt a little bit like embracing the imperfect kind of stuff. That comes through with this track a bit. And what I got from Sai mostly was a lot of my guitar lines kind of mangled and rearranged. There was an entirely other section to this in the same tuning that was kind of like a folky non-slide thing that I really like, but then for some reason I didn't think they worked well together. They just felt too different. So I got this nice few drum loops and a percussion, and the ambient guitar stuff from Sai, and then I kind of restructured it based around what he did. I think I removed a couple sections, the guitar part I mentioned earlier, and then repeated some of the stuff here. I think he came up with a bass line that I wasn't into. It basically just followed my pattern, but I just didn't like it for some reason. So I ended up writing this that kind of sounds quite acid housey, I guess. And yeah, I really liked that, and I thought it was nice to have this really kind of straightforward, structured, rigid, nearly electro, acid house, whatever kind of section juxtaposed next to the slide guitar, which is quite sloppy, and I think even slowed down in places. The outro is definitely slowed down. So I thought that kind of juxtaposition was really fun, especially when you have, again, another riser, and you go into this really choppy section. It's quite, it has a really strong impact compared to the rest of that section, to have it go from like being so loose to so heavy and structured. I really like that. What else? Oh, I played harmonica. Again, I'm not a harmonica player, but I own harmonicas, so I'm not a strong harmonica player, so I ended up putting a glitch on it and kind of putting this... Where's the other effect gone? Kind of really fast, sudden modulation effect on it that changes the sound quite a lot. So that in between, it doesn't really feel like it sits in the kind of straightforward section. So that could have perhaps been quieter. It works when you have the slide underneath it. Definitely. And when you combine the slide guitar with the structured section and the harmonica, it really works. I think it comes out of nowhere here, but I kind of wanted to introduce it gradually rather than just have it in a section. Yeah, so that was really fun. I feel like that's a lot of the track discussed already. And then the outro is just a lot of this filtered drum patch. Something I've realised Sai does that I hadn't really thought of before is he layers a lot of drums, and I'll usually go drum kit that sounds acoustic and quite human, and then I'll maybe layer an electro kit but doing basically the same thing. He goes like just straight up full on drum kit and then 2 layers of percussion. So that I find that really fun. That's just never occurred to me to try it. So the outro is one of those filtered drum sections, and then just the, I don't even know if it's half or quarter time slide. And you've got the two left and right ears. I'll say that again. So panned hard left and hard right. You've got basically the same guitar part, but it's played at different points. It's a different take, a different sample, so it sounds really big rather than just having the same thing played in both ears. It has this really big feel to it, so that's why that sounds so large, because it is different. And actually I think the guitar in the right ear plays another chord that the left ear doesn't play, so it kind of feels unfinished. Yeah, you kind of want it to go back to that other chord that the left ear is playing already, but it doesn't. That's how the album ends, with over a minute? No, hang on. Yeah, a minute of slide guitar by itself with the drums. And that is that track. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Wow. So I guess I can turn off I guess I can turn this camera off. Bye bye camera. I guess I can turn this camera on. Hello world. Let me just press a few buttons here, close some of this other stuff. That was the One Weekend EP. I hope you liked it. If you didn't like it, thanks for sitting through 1 hour and 20 of me talking about it, I guess. Let me think. At present, this is available for purchase through CD Baby. If you're watching this any time later than it being live, it will almost certainly be on Spotify, Deezer, Amazon. I can move this closer now, can't I? It'll be in all those places, I'm reasonably certain, as of probably tomorrow, real time. So if you're watching this in the future, it's available. I'll put it up on Bandcamp as well. I might put it as pay what you like on Bandcamp, I'm not sure, so you can download it for free. If not, you'll be able to get it for free on Spotify. I didn't do this weekend to make money. I did this weekend project because I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be a learning experience to learn more about my own process, the flaws in my writing process, and kind of just to write music with Sai as well. So didn't do this particular project for money, but I do make music for money. So if you want to help us out in that regard, help me improve the studio I'm currently sat in, help me buy more things, help me do more freelance stuff like these live streams, that would be great. Do feel free to send money, I guess, but don't feel obligated to. Not that you would. Thanks for hanging out. If you want me to do more live streams, the best way to tell me is to tell me in the chat, or find me on Twitter at LTGuitarist. If you follow me on Twitch, that's a really good indication that you want more of this. If you leave us a comment on the archive on YouTube, or subscribe to the YouTube, again, that's a good indicator that I'm doing something right. Next live stream will hopefully be Monday, the usual time. Today was a bit later than normal, so we'll maybe say 6-7 o'clock next Monday. If you're not sure or you want to know for sure, you can find me on Twitter at LTGuitarist. I'll shout it out there before I go live. Yeah, I think that's everything. Wicked. Thanks for hanging out. See you next week. Toodaloo.